We'll start off simple with what was your childhood like? Who were your friends? What was your neighborhood like?
Let me start now.
Yes. It's the point of asking a question. You answer it.
We didn't actually ask me the question.
I did. I
You
said,
didn't. You said we're going to start off with,
yeah.
what was my childhood like?
Yes.
I was born in 1971. We lived in a very small town called Coldwater, Michigan. And my father was a raging alcoholic and a horrible, horrible, horrible provider. And with all his drinking, lost the house that we lived in and the house that my parents had as a rental. So we moved into a trailer with my dad out by Coldwater Lake. And then when I was 3, my mom left my dad because he was cheating on her and drinking a lot, promising that he was going to quit over and over and over and over again, but he wouldn't. When I was 5, we moved to Kalamazoo into another trailer park. We actually moved into a couple trailer parks. But we lived in several trailer parks. I had my older brother and sister with me at the time. My brother was 7 years older than me. My sister was 10 years older than me. Not was, but is. 10 years older than me. And then when we moved to Kalamazoo, we moved around a bunch. We moved from place to place to place. But when we lived in Kalamazoo, that was one of the places that we stayed at the longest. But when I was 7, my brother was kicked out of the house, so he would have been 14, because he was growing marijuana out in the fields. We were really poor, so I mean, we just go and vandalize stuff and throw stuff at abandoned houses, and that's really about it.
Was there much like policing? Like what?
No, we were latchkey kids. We basically, in our neighborhood, all the kids would come home when the streetlights turned on. So you'd be out goofing off, and when the streetlights turned on, it was your cue to go home. So some kids, because all of our parents were working multiple jobs. Mom was everything from a waitress to a secretary to dynamite setter.
What is a dynamite setter?
Somebody that literally sets dynamite.
Oh my god.
They take dynamite and set it, and they put the fuses and stuff and the wires into them. To a janitor. I mean, she did pretty much everything. She'd work 2 and 3 jobs. I hardly ever got to see mom. So I was pretty much raised by society and my sister. We didn't have a lot of toys. I was the baby, so being the baby, I got the little bit of the toys. Matter of fact, Star Wars had come out when I was a kid, and I had every Star Wars figure there was because they were relatively inexpensive. My mom's boyfriends knew that I liked them, so they would always buy them for me too. So.
I remember you telling me a story of when you broke into a car with the college students.
That was old. That was when I was older. When we moved to Wichita, Kansas, I moved from pretty much. We lived in a relatively poor neighborhood, but it was a lot. It was very Heinz 57, so very ethnically diverse. Probably majority white, and then a sprinkling of pretty much every kind of ethnicity you can think of. But when I moved to Wichita, I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood. And a lot of my friends, I didn't see the color that, society wants you to see. Mm-hmm. But a lot of my kids were kind of troublemakers. And I started hanging around with a couple of kids, and we'd, go steal stuff every day. So every day we'd go to school, and then when we were done with school, we'd, on the way home, go into a couple little places, and we'd shoplift, So I'd start off with a candy bar or a pair of glasses, letter openers, I mean, anything. Literally anything we'd steal. Oh, Dungeons & Dragons was really popular then, too. And we'd steal the little tiny Dungeons & Dragons figurines. But, so one night, my buddy Lou, Italian kid, lived down the street, he was like, hey, yeah, you know what I do when I need money? I just open up cars and take whatever's in them. And I'm like, oh, no, man, I can't do that, man. I'd get in big trouble. And he goes, no, we're not breaking into them. They're just if they're unlocked. We'll just take, whatever pocket change you leave in the car. So I'm like, okay. So we go around, and literally people leave pocket change in every single car on the planet, and hardly anybody locked the doors. So, we open up the door, pull out the pocket change, and head on out. And in the night, we'd have $5, $6, $7 a piece. It was awesome. Well, one night, we were walking by this house, and there was obviously the party going on. It was this beat-up yellow Nova, like a late 60s, early 70s Nova. And I went to go open up the car door, and it went, and just made this hideous, rusty, broken-down door noise. And I see all these heads pop up, from inside, trying to see who's out. And me and Lou, we just flew down the road. We were running, and these guys came out, and they were all college-age kids, and they were like, "We're gonna kick your ass." You gotta remember, I was only like in 6th grade, and we were like, "F you, F you," no, we're not. You're not gonna kick our asses. And then we just ran. Well, we ran because we knew our neighborhood really well. Apparently, they did too. So we knew we couldn't run straight to our house because they were pretty close behind us. So we ran down the street a little bit further, and then just jumped in somebody's backyard and just hid. Well, when we thought we were in the clear, they jumped over the fence and grabbed us and shook the crap out of us, and threatened that they were going to kick our ass. Basically, scared us because we were just little kids. And it did. It scared me. I never did it again.
And was that your introduction to music? Because didn't you say that there was like a little cassette?
Yeah, I actually just got rid of the cassette because it was a Billy Squier cassette. It wasn't my introduction to music. I actually listened to a lot of music back then, but it was a Billy Squier cassette. Not an 8-track, but a cassette. And cassettes were pretty new back then. And I still had it. I kept it near and dear for many years until finally somebody convinced me that I don't need my cassettes anymore because they just collect dust. So I took them to Bookman's and got rid of them. I think I got $6.
Do you remember much of Jimmy Carter's presidency?
I remember my mom was pretty active. She's a lifelong tree-hugging hippie, as far as left as you can possibly get. And she, Democrat. And she was really big on supporting the local political scene. She went to the rallies, she went to the fundraisers, and she voted for Jimmy Carter. Well, that was in '76, so I was still, a little kid. I was only 5, 6 years old. But I do remember him as a president. I remember seeing him on TV. I remember hearing him talk about his policies. I remember, the climate that was around at that time, because we were in a gas shortage, just coming out of gas shortage. We were in an upswing with some of our economy. Some of our economy was on the downswing. The entire auto industry in Detroit was kind of folding. They weren't improving their cars. They kept the same gas guzzling, behemoths on the road, when Japanese and German cars were coming into the country with small, much more efficient vehicles. So instead of us changing, we just kept putting out the same garbage, and then those companies literally were going bankrupt. So when I was a kid and we lived in Michigan, we lived about 15 miles from a Fisher body plant, which made Buicks at the time. And they shut down that plant, and my friend Joey, his parents, they divorced over it financially because he couldn't provide for the family anymore. So he left. And then there's another kid down the road, Jamie Tucker. His father killed himself.
Oh, wow.
So
Jimmy Carter had an effect on.
No,
well, not really.
No, it was an effective business. People like to put a lot of blame on the president that's in office, but the president, although he is a very powerful decision maker, still has to run everything through Congress and through the Senate. Still has to get those laws approved. In addition to that, you also have corporations that their dollars control a lot of what goes on in our country. So, these companies were just sucking the profits out of these companies, paying up the scale instead of reinvesting back into their corporation, their products.
Do you remember the Challenger, the space shuttle explosion? Where were you?
I do. I was a freshman in high school, and I just finished accelerated algebra, accelerated trig, and then I went into accelerated biology. And while I was in biology, they were scrambling to get all these TVs into all the classrooms because they wanted us to watch it. And so they it was on all the those big old-fashioned TVs, like a giant picture tube. Anyway, so they had those in those carts in all the rooms, and then we didn't have enough for every room, so we'd have 3 classes all in one class. So we're all watching the space shuttle, and it blew up, and we just didn't know what was going on. It was a very chaotic event. A lot of people kind of got it and were really sad, and there were some people crying because obviously they knew that they died. But it was a major setback for NASA. But it does happen.
It does. How did you get into the Marines?
Well, again, I come from a very poor background, and even though I did extremely well in high school, I did not have any money. I'd lived on my own since my freshman year in high school. I lived in a 32-foot travel trailer. I traded that to move into a different trailer, and then I sold that because it was practically condemned, moved in with my best friend Stuart. While I was living with Stuart, I realized that I had zero money. And even with a scholarship, I still didn't have enough to go to school. So I decided I was going to go in the military. And I didn't want to, play military, G.I. Joe guy. So I said, well, I'm not going to go in the Army and the Marine Corps. I'm going to go in the Air Force. Well, in '89, there were all these cutbacks with the military, and they were shutting down military bases. They put a freeze on recruitment.
Why?
Because there wasn't really much going on in the world. It was just a lot of small stuff, and the Air
Mm.
Force had spent a ton of money on all these programs, and those programs really weren't necessary anymore. So they were cutting back and closing down a portion of the bases or some bases in their entirety, getting rid of old programs that needed to be updated. So basically, they just weren't bringing on any more humans, any more airmen. So I figured, oh, well, the next best bet, and I can still get a college education, is the Navy. So I'm riding my bicycle down to the recruiter, and I get a flat tire, fix it, get another flat tire, fix it, get another flat tire. Didn't have anything else to fix it with. So I just put my bike on my shoulder and I start running. Well, I'll tell you, I put my bike on my right shoulder and I started running. And I ran the rest of the way. I get all the way to the recruiting office, and they're closed. So I'm like, ah, crap. So I'm looking in the window, and this Marine walks by, and this dressed blue is carrying a box, boxes of pizzas. And he goes, can I help you? And I said, well, yeah, I'm just getting ready to enlist in the Navy, and I just had a couple more questions before I signed on the line. And he goes, oh, we're a Department of the Navy. Come on in. I can answer your questions for you. Showed me some gung-ho videos, gave me the line of, oh, man, with your test scores, you can take any job you want. So I went and opened contract in the United States Marine Corps. That simple.
An open contract?
Yeah, open contract is basically where you go in and, well, what it was sold to me as is that you go in and based on whatever you want to do is where you can go. Because with my test scores, because I had a 139 out of 139 on the ASVAB, that I could pick any job I wanted. Well, that's not how it works. How it works is that when you go in, wherever they need you, that's where you're going. Well, luckily my test scores were really good. But while I was in basic training, the drill instructors would always say, where's my O3s? And O3s are infantry, they're grunts. And they'd go, oorah! And then he'd say, where's my open contracts? And we'd go, oorah! And he'd go, welcome to the O3s! And the whole time through boot camp, I'm thinking, I am going to kill my drill instructor and my recruiter. Because my recruiter lied to me. But I shot really well at the rifle range and got selected for presidential support. Presidential support is the people that stand, the Marines that stand out front of Air Force One or the helicopter, or they stand in front of the White House or congressional buildings. Basically, they open the door, close the door. It's actually a good thing I didn't get the job because I was only 5'9". You have to be 5'10" to 6'2". They're looking for a very uniform body of Marines to do that job. But I shot really well at the rifle range. I got a 247 out of 250. At the time, a 259 was the Marine Corps record. So I got selected to go through this psychological battery tests, and I was selected to be a sniper. So I went into Scout Sniper School, and I became a garrison sniper.
All right, I have a question because this has to do with like other parts. Has it been the 20 years to where you can talk about the Marines, or
It has not.
it has not? So you cannot disclose.
I cannot disclose certain portions of my job. I can tell you that I was a garrison sniper.
All right. Well, of what you can tell, what were the hardest parts about being a Marine?
Honestly, the hardest parts, for the most part, it's a job. You go in, you do a job, you get 3 squares a day, you get a roof over your head, you get all the clothes, you get everything about wearing, medical treatment, dental. I mean, it's not a bad gig. The hard part is about being told to do something 24 hours a day. Even when you're on your own time, you can't do anything that jeopardizes your position or posture in the military. So even mundane things, like you would have a gunnery sergeant come walking into a building and go, hey, come with me. And he'd walk you outside and he'd say, hey, there's a cigarette butt right there. So instead of picking up the cigarette butt and throwing it in the garbage if he was that concerned, he wanted to come find somebody, in this case me, to go pick up the cigarette butt. Well, because I'm a smartass, I said, well, I'm not a smoker, I shouldn't have to pick that up. That's not the point. The lesson to be learned is that you're a team and everybody does it. And everybody takes care of their own portion of the responsibility. So the hardest part is really about learning how to be a teammate, how to be a human being, and at the same time how to provide for your brother. Because when you're in the Marine Corps or the military for that matter, the lesser grades like the Air Force and Navy, all that other garbage. But when you're in the Marine Corps, you learn how to be there for somebody else instead of just yourself.
What parts did you enjoy the most out of the Marines?
Couple things. I enjoyed a lot of the travel, even though out of the 83 different deployments that I went to, well, not deployments, 83 ground drops that I went to, none of them were in really fantastic places. Like we didn't get to go to the Bahamas or Jamaica or France. You know, we didn't go see the Eiffel Tower. We saw
Yeah.
pretty much every armpit on the planet. So if you could find an armpit and people live there, preferably really not very good humans, that's where we were.
Um,
But yeah, travel, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that much.
and after the Marines or near your end of Marines, didn't you meet George H. Bush?
H.W. Bush, yes, George Bush Sr. When I was in Africa, when we were in Somalia, we helped build a school for children because they didn't have school, they didn't have running water, they didn't have electricity, they didn't have windows in their buildings. So we built a school out of what was the Olympic Stadium in Mogadishu. When we did that, we had taken some fire, and in the nighttime, when everybody was resting and sleeping, we went out and took care of business and got the job done. Anyway, long story short is that we received humanitarian and presidential citations. So they flew us into the White House once we got back to the United States. There were 16 of us, and we got to be pinned by President Bush. And I don't care what side of the aisle you walk on, left or right, if you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, you become a giddy schoolgirl when you get to meet the President of the United States.
Well, did you enjoy his presidency then? If that's what.
It's kind of a complicated question because I'm a fence dweller. I believe in programs to help people that socially in our society need help, but I don't like the abuse of programs. So when it comes to having programs, I'm very left. I like to have programs that help, the poor, the children, the elderly, people that have paid into the system, people that deserve help. But on the other hand, I'm very right in the fact that I think that once you have been a recipient of that help and are on your own, you need to be put on your own and stop sucking at the teat of the American taxpayer. So, yeah, I'm a big old giant fence dweller. That being said, wasn't a huge fan of George W. H. Bush, but even more so, a huge disappointment was his son. One of the worst presidents in American history.
Alrighty. Alright, how did you get into the bike industry?
Well, when I was a kid in Michigan, we got to play ice hockey, whether it was on a pond or anywhere. But we didn't have a lot of money, so we all kind of shared bicycles. So one of the things that my mom got me when I was a kid out of this lawnmower store was a bicycle. It was an orange bike with a banana seat, had a Firebird on the seat, the whole works. And it was the coolest bike ever. I mean, granted, it was just a cheap department store bike, but they were higher quality back then. I've always kind of had that passion for the bicycle. Not just the industry, but just bicycles in general. The engineering behind them, the simplicity of them, the freedom that they provide for transportation. That you can just get on a bike and go wherever you want to go. The necessity of being a poor kid or coming from poor families, you have to work. Well, since I was riding a bicycle all the time, when I went into a bicycle store, it was called Ye Old Bike Shop. I was probably 13 years old, maybe 14. I think I was 13 years old. Not even been 12. No, I was 13 years old. The owner, because I had to fix my own bike, so I couldn't afford to pay for repairs to get done. So he said, "Well, would you like to help out here?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So I got my first job, my first official job, actually as a taxpayer, working for Ye Old Bike Shop, and it just gets in your fingerprints. It gets in your soul, just your whole spirit. The greasiness, the smell of the oil, the sound that the chain makes as it interfaces with the cogs. So I started riding bicycles, and then in 85, 86, my mom and my Aunt Barb pitched together and bought me a bicycle. And part of that bicycle purchase was that it gave me an entry into a race. So I went to this race. It was called the Turkey Day Classic here in Arizona. And I won. I won first place in the junior and citizens category. There's an older guy there named John Howard, and John Howard said, "Hey, if you were on a quality bike, you'd be pretty fast." And I was pretty offended, because when you have a brand spanking new bike that your mother buys for you, that's as good as gold. But in hindsight, it was a piece of junk. So I got into the racing program with KHS and Puma under John Howard. And then I was on Sungkyong and then Avocet Oakley, the Avocet Oakley team. And then we went to the Lotto Junior Development Squad. So basically, I just kept bouncing from race team to race team, um, and just really was passionate about bicycles. Went to the Marine Corps, get out of the Marine Corps, come right back to the bicycle industry because I love it.
And
And then
didn't you get into like the Olympics as like an
I
alternate?
was an Olympic alternate in '88. Yeah, I went to the Colorado Training Center, the Colorado Springs Olympic Training Center, and we did the junior national prestige in the '87, and then in the spring, not even spring, the winter, like February March, we did the final trials, and I was Kenny Carpenter's alternate in '88.
Cool. And then the transition between working for a bike shop and then
Owning,
owning a
yeah,
bike shop.
that was rough. So in 2004, I was working, or 2003, I was working for a place in town called Bicycle Showcase. I was their operations manager. I got them actually out of the red ink into the black ink, so made this store profitable again. And in the process, I met somebody that asked me if I was happy what I was doing, and I said, "Well, yeah, I love what I do." And he wanted to be a silent partner in a bicycle store, so he provided $32,000 of capital, and I opened up Tribe Multisport. That was in '04. Um, Rapidly became one of the biggest and best triathlon shops in the western half of the United States. Matter of fact, in all of Metro Phoenix, we were the largest triathlon shop. I sponsored, you know, a dozen professional triathletes, including Joseph Major, who won Ironman Arizona and also Ironman Hungary. We sponsored just several pros. But the recession hit in 2008 and 2009. The housing bubble busted,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people lost a lot of their income, a lot of their money, a lot of their investments, and it affected sales. So even though my company, because we were so specialized, maintained our level of profitability, a lot of our peers were hurting pretty good.
Oh.
So when they had lost a lot of their business, it actually had a reverse effect and allowed me to prosper. So in 2011, I sold the business for $695,000.
And 9/11 is one of the biggest things in American history recently because it like changed how airports work and
Mm-hmm.
all the security. Where were you during 9/11?
I was working for a company called Pitney Bowes, selling fax machines and copiers, and I was in transit to work when the first airplane hit. When I got to work, people were just kind of crazy, didn't know what they were doing. They were all looking on their computer screens and watching TV, and they show one of the towers just smoldering and smoking, and honestly, people jumping out of windows. Um, and while I was watching it, the second plane hits. So uh, my boss, she was just like, everybody just go ahead and go home, be with your family. So I headed home, watched the rest of it on TV in shock, just like the rest of us. And then the next day I went down to my recruiting station and offered to sign back up again.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they like let you in or?
They did. They did offer, but they wanted me to go into a different branch.
Than what you
Because the Marine
wanted?
Corps, you'd have to go back. I'd have to go into the Army or
Uh,
another branch. Because the Marine Corps, once you're a citizen, they don't want you back in. I know it seems kind of stupid, but that is how it works. But no, I went down to reenlist, and it just came down to it where I had two new kids, so it was a lot of risk, and there was a ton of people signing up, and there was so much craziness at the office at the recruiting station that I basically had some time to think about it, and people were stepping up to the line pretty good. It wasn't the point where it was getting any crazier. I was thinking there was going to be more stuff hitting in the United States soil, but there wasn't.
um, did we have any family members that were damaged or hurt or killed?
No. I did have to place an awkward call to my sister. She's married to a Pakistani, and when I tried to call them to make sure they're okay, because they're Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get a hold of her. And the first thing that goes through my mind, like any red-blooded paranoid American, is that possibly he was involved in some way, shape, or fashion. So when I finally did get a hold of her, another day and a half later, I told her point blank, if I find out in any way, shape, or form that he was involved, I will personally kill him.
Okay then.
So that's about it. That's the only family involvement we really had.
All right.
But he wasn't involved. He's too much of a buffoon.
I think we've gone through all the questions. I don't. Yeah.
Dad, what are you wearing? This isn't your normal get up. Why are you wearing those glasses and drinking wine? I don't understand it.